Welcome, everyone. Today, you're not just going to hear another business story. You're about to step into one of the most unexpected, inspiring, and downright unbelievable journeys of our time. And no, it didn't begin with fame, fortune, or flashy boardrooms. It started somewhere far more humble, in a small living room, with a handful of DVDs, no real plan, and a dream that most people would have laughed at. This isn't just the origin story of a company. This is about how a simple frustration turned into a global revolution. How two ordinary guys took something as boring as renting movies and flipped the entire entertainment industry on its head. From the way we relax after work to how we bond with friends, how we escape, how we dream, Netflix quietly became part of our daily rhythm. And now, we can't imagine life without it. But have you ever really stopped and asked, how did it all start? Who were the people behind the red envelope? How did they go from mailing DVDs to shaping culture around the world? This isn't a fairy tale. This is a real story, filled with setbacks, rejection, insane risks, and a belief so strong, nothing could break it. This story will stir your emotions, fire up your ambition, and remind you that you don't need to have all the answers or a perfect plan. What you need is an idea that won't leave you alone and the guts to chase it when nobody else sees it. So take a breath, get comfortable, and let's dive into a story that's not just about streaming. It's about persistence. It's about disruption. It's about proving that crazy ideas, when backed by action, can change the world. This is the incredible journey of Netflix, from a simple problem to a worldwide phenomenon that redefined how we watch, feel, and connect. Two regular guys, one crazy idea, and the moment that changed everything. Long before Netflix was a global name, before it was on your phone, TV, and even inside your weekend plans, it started with something simple: frustration. The year was 1997. DVDs were new, internet was slow, and late fees from video rental stores? Brutal. Let's rewind to California, where two very different personalities crossed paths: Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph. Reed was the thinker, a software engineer with a quiet, analytical mind. He had already built and sold a tech company. He loved math, logic, structure, the kind of guy who didn't talk much, but when he did, you listened. He was methodical, patient, always looking for patterns. Mark? Total opposite. A born marketer, full of energy and ideas. He had a background in direct mail, retail, and storytelling. He could sell you on anything, and he was always bouncing from one idea to the next. Visionary, fast-moving, relentless. Now, here's the funny part. Netflix didn't start with some grand vision of streaming or changing Hollywood. It started because Reed got slapped with a $40 late fee after returning a VHS copy of Apollo 13. That one moment sparked a question, not just why are late fees a thing, but why does renting movies suck? He shared the frustration with Mark, and from that small moment, a bigger idea started to take shape. What if there was a better way to rent movies? No stores, no lines, no late fees. Just pick what you want, get it by mail, and return it whenever. DVDs had just entered the market. Light, cheap to ship, and perfect for mail order. It wasn't streaming yet, but it was the seed. So, they ran with it. Two guys. One mission: make movie renting painless. They didn't have a blueprint. They weren't thinking about billion-dollar valuations, or awards, or producing Oscar-winning originals. They just wanted to solve a simple problem, one that millions of people didn't even realize could be solved differently. Mark built the first website. Reed funded the early experiments. They mailed a CD to themselves to see if it would survive the postal system. It did. That tiny success lit a fire. They started small, hand-packing DVDs in envelopes, trying to figure out what people wanted. It was clunky. It was messy. And in the early days, nobody was really interested. They pitched the idea to Blockbuster, and Blockbuster laughed. Some people said renting DVDs by mail, that's not a real business. Why bother? Who's going to wait for a movie in the mail when they can just drive to the store? Others flat out told us it would never work. You guys are just a couple of dreamers playing startup. We heard it all. And yeah, we were frustrated. We weren't some giant company. We didn't have resources or backing or a guaranteed plan. But you know what we did have? Fire. There was something burning in us that was louder than all that doubt. We believed in this idea, deeply, even when nobody else did. We believed people deserved something better than late fees and disappointment. That belief, that obsession, it became the fuel behind what would grow into one of the biggest entertainment revolutions the world had ever seen. We built everything from scratch, in a garage, without money, without an office, without a team, without outside support, but with an idea that burned in our hearts. It wasn't just a dream, it was a plan. Bold, crazy, but real. We built a product that worked. We knew it would change everything. But the truth is, that wasn't enough. Because if you don't have an investor, you don't have trust, you don't have anyone who believes in you. You're just a genius with an idea that's falling apart. And that's exactly what happened to us. We came in with pitches, with demos, with facts. And over again we heard the same thing. This won't work. People won't order CDs by mail. The internet is too slow. Why do this when there's Blockbuster? We weren't just rejected. We were ignored. We were underestimated. We were despised. Every door was closed. But we didn't stop. Because when the world closes all the doors on you, you have only two options: give up or create your own door and walk through it. We chose the latter. We worked where we could, in one of our garages, among boxes, old computers, homemade servers. We had no comfort. We had no days off. We lived in code, in experiments, in uncertainty. But every day we woke up with the same question: how to do it better, how to give people something they don't yet know they want. We knew that DVD is just the beginning. We wanted to give people choice. We wanted to give them control. And at some point, one person said yes. She didn't demand a perfect business plan. She didn't ask 1,000 questions. She just saw what we had created and believed. The first check, the first money, the first chance. And we didn't lose it. We officially launched Netflix. It wasn't a big launch. There was no press. There was no red tape. Just a website, a button, an email. People clicked, we sent. But even then, no one believed it would grow into something more. Everyone was still looking at Blockbuster. Everyone still thought that video stores were forever. But we had already seen a different future. We saw a world where you didn't have to stand in lines, where movies came to you, where you didn't have to pay for being late. And we kept going. We improved the platform. We worked on the service. We listened to users. And most importantly, we were preparing for what was going to change everything: streaming. Everyone said we were crazy again, that the internet wouldn't hold up, that no one would want to watch movies online. But we already knew the price of the word impossible. We had heard it from the very first days. And we learned to respond not with words, but with actions. We put everything we had into something that didn't yet work fully. We tested. We broke. We built again. Because we believed, not in an idea, but in an inevitability. Streaming wasn't an option. This was next. And we were going to be the first to bring it to every home. Not to destroy Blockbuster, but to build the future. And we were already moving toward it. Every day, every click, every show you've ever watched on Netflix started from that moment. From a garage, from rejection, and from a determination not to give up. Imagine this. You created something revolutionary. You were heard. People started to believe. You broke the rules of the old market and created new ones. But that's when the real battle begins. Because the world doesn't stay silent when you succeed. The higher you soar, the more they want to stop you. 2007, we had just launched streaming. It was crazy. DVDs were still king. People weren't ready to give up physical discs. The internet was slow. Studios were cautious. And competitors were aggressive. But we knew the future was in instant access, not in another envelope in the mailbox. It was a moment of choice: remain a convenient DVD service or jump into the unknown. We chose the latter, and it forced us to reboot ourselves from within. We did what others didn't do. We gave up a profitable business for a big idea. Yes, we knew it was a risk, but we weren't afraid of risk. We were afraid of remaining the same as yesterday. We started investing in a streaming platform when it wasn't clear whether people would watch TV like that. Nobody wanted to give us the rights. The big studios were afraid of us. They thought we were a threat. And they were right. Because we weren't just changing the way you watch shows. We were changing the control. Historically, television has been owned by a few giants. They decided what to watch, when to watch it, and how to watch it. But we said, now it's up to the viewer. And to prove it, we went further. We realized that the future is not only in streaming, but also in our own content. 2013, House of Cards. Our first original series. Huge expense, huge risk, and with no guarantee it would work. But we invested, not just in the series, but in the idea. Netflix is not just a platform. It's a studio. It's a voice. It's a creator. And it worked. People didn't just watch. They devoured an entire season in one night. For the first time in history, the viewer had complete control over the pace of their viewing. We didn't just change television. We redefined the very concept of time and entertainment. The success of House of Cards was explosive. And we didn't stop. Orange is the New Black. Narcos. Stranger Things. The Crown. Each project is a new chapter in our story. We were building a content empire that knew no boundaries, no formats, no templates. And the world responded. Users from America, Europe, Latin America, Asia, they all wanted Netflix. And we went to them. In 2016, we launched almost all over the world at the same time. 130 countries in one day. It was unprecedented. But for us, it was just the beginning. We started investing in local stories: Spanish, Indian, Korean, German. We didn't bring Hollywood to the world. We let the world tell its stories to the world. And that made the planet fall in love with Netflix. We became more than just a service. We became part of the culture. People were quoting our shows. Memes were flying. Actors were becoming world-class stars overnight. And at the same time, we never forgot the main rule: always innovate. Always ahead. We changed the interface. We introduced personalized recommendations. We studied viewer habits and learned from every click. When a competitor appeared, we were already ahead. Because we didn't copy. We created new rules. But with success comes responsibility. Too much attention. Too many expectations. People started asking, has Netflix become too powerful? We heard the criticism. We heard the fears. But we always went back to where we started. Tell stories. Change the world. And do it with soul. Today, Netflix is more than just a business. It's an example of what happens when you believe in a crazy idea. When you're not afraid to challenge tradition. When you're willing to lose everything for something bigger. We weren't born giants. We grew up in a garage, on CDs, in sleepless nights, and in millions of doubts. But we never stopped. The story of Netflix is the story of how dreams become reality. If you're willing to fight. If you're willing to break away from the mold. And if you never stop halfway. After years of constant innovation, scaling, and global acclaim, Netflix was literally everywhere. You wanted to watch a movie, it was Netflix. You needed something to watch with friends, it was Netflix. You had a smartphone, a tablet, a TV, Netflix was there. You pressed the play button, and the world stopped. Netflix had become an integral part of modern life. But here's the truth. The more powerful you become, the less control you have. And just as Larry and Sergey faced the burden of Google, so the founders of Netflix felt that they were no longer just creating a service. They were managing a living ecosystem, part of a global culture. This brought with it difficult questions, impossible decisions, and internal emotional battles. When Netflix was a small startup, their values were simple. Focus on the viewer, create quality content, change the industry. But as they grew, all of these were tested for strength. They faced challenges: the fight against censorship and freedom of speech, the balance between art and popular culture, the issue of user data privacy, and of course, competition, which was often fierce. Netflix faced a choice: remain an independent voice or adapt to the big players and the demands of the market. As the company collected more and more information about users' preferences, questions arose about whether Netflix was looking too deeply into people's lives. Some loved the convenience of personalized recommendations, while others feared that their private lives were under constant surveillance. Critics never tired of repeating, Netflix knows more about you than your friends. This has sparked controversy, public debate, and even protests among employees who have questioned the company's policies. Some disagree with Netflix's work with major production studios, while others criticize the company's internal culture and attitude toward diversity. The founders themselves, Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph, started out as just people in love with the idea of changing the way the world watched entertainment. They were dreamers, innovators, not seasoned businessmen. But now they ran an empire where every move they made was felt around the world. Over time, Reed began to avoid public speaking, not seeking attention. He just wanted to create. Mark retreated into the background, focusing on future projects. Managing Netflix became too complicated, too big and complex beyond the initial idea. They realized it was time to let go, to hand over the reins to new leaders who would bring a fresh vision. It was a difficult, emotional decision to let go of what had been building for years, but at the same time necessary for further growth. Today, Netflix is more than just a movie streaming service. It's a global studio, a culture creator, an engine of entertainment innovation. It's a platform trusted by billions of users around the world. It's beloved, sometimes criticized, but always influential. Netflix has changed the way we look at entertainment. It has made content accessible, fast, and personalized. Far from just a platform, it is the engine of a digital revolution in media. And honestly, it's not just a story about a company. It's a story about what happens when you don't settle for ordinary. When you take a problem that everyone else is ignoring and solve it better than anyone could have imagined. When you follow your passion, even if the world laughs. When you hold on to your values, even if you are called to take shortcuts. When you create not for money, but for an idea. Netflix didn't start with millions. They started with faith and questions. They didn't chase fame, they sought truth. And even as Netflix became a giant, they continued to invent, explore, and move forward, not just manage. The world needs such dreamers. Legacy, influence, and truth. What's behind Netflix's global power? When Reed Hastings and Mark Randolph decided to step down from the helm, a new era began. Netflix was long past being just a startup or even a company. It was a digital force shaping the way billions of people watch, learn, and live. This part isn't about what Netflix created. It's about what it changed forever and what this story means to you. Because if we don't understand that, we're missing the point. Netflix has changed the world of entertainment and education, the economy, and the accessibility of content. Once upon a time, movies and TV shows were locked in theaters, on cable, limited by geography and money. But Netflix has given everyone the key to unlock these stories instantly. A child in a small village without a movie theater can watch the latest TV series. A young director with no connections gets a chance to show his film to millions. Netflix democratized entertainment. It broke down borders and turned the world into a giant movie theater. And with it, entire industries were born, from streaming platforms and the creator economy to digital marketing and remote work. Millions of people today earn a living thanks to the systems Netflix helped build. And here is a new challenge. Will Netflix replace itself? How is artificial intelligence changing the way we watch and create content? How are incredibly smart algorithms transforming not just viewing, but also what we watch and how it affects us? Netflix is no longer just a platform. It is on the verge of a new evolution that requires enormous responsibility. Because when a machine starts to understand you better than you do, it can shape your thoughts, influence your decisions, and even change your beliefs. It's a new kind of power, and how Netflix handles it will define the next decade. Behind every great achievement comes a price that not everyone sees. Netflix made a world of entertainment accessible, but it also made traditional movie theaters disappear, forcing the industry to find new paths. It raised questions about privacy, algorithmic manipulation, and cultural responsibility. What started as a simple idea has turned into a complex, vast, and fragile world. And here we come to you. What does this story teach you? Even if you never work in tech or the film industry, it's a mirror for anyone who dreams of creating something meaningful, of doing the impossible, of filling life with meaning amidst the noise and chaos. Here are the lessons of this story. You don't need permission to create something great. Reed and Mark started out as just people with an idea. No experience, no money, but with passion and a plan. Every no is a step towards your biggest yes. They heard rejection countless times, but they kept going. Because the world doesn't believe until you make the impossible obvious. Focus on the problem, not the reward. Netflix wasn't chasing instant profits. It wanted to change the way people experience entertainment. When you solve real problems, the world will come to you. Grow fast, but stay honest. Even as they grew, Netflix always remembered what's best for the viewer. This simple idea set them apart. Build for everyone, not just yourself. From the very beginning, Netflix has been open, accessible, and global. That generosity has built a foundation of trust. And it's trust that has made Netflix not just great, but beloved. And a few facts to appreciate the scale. Today, Netflix has hundreds of millions of subscribers around the world, creates thousands of hours of its own content every year, and is changing the entertainment industry like no other. It all started with one simple idea: how to make entertainment more accessible. One small garage, two dreamers, and now the whole world. If you're still with me, this story is now yours. The world today is full of distractions, fear, and comfort. But the story of Netflix proves one thing. You don't have to be rich, famous, or perfect. You need a mission so strong that it pulls you forward, even when the whole world is pushing you down. You need the courage to start when no one believes. You need the discipline to keep going when no one is looking, and the humility to let go when your mission becomes bigger than you. So what are you building? What's your version of Netflix? It doesn't have to be a company. It can be a book, a movement, a school, a message, a platform, a dream, whatever. Start now, because the future belongs to those who are not afraid to act. Thank you for watching the full story of Netflix. It's not just about success, but also about the struggle, the soul, and the quiet battles behind the scenes. If this story has inspired you to believe even 1% more in your dreams, do one thing right now. Subscribe. This is where real stories come to life. Stories that don't just teach, but change. See you later. Keep learning, building, and dreaming.